the purest tasting water on earth, born from untouched lands, naturally filtered through ancient lava rock. You are what you drink. Be a force of nature. Icelandic glacial. The purest tasting water on earth, born from untouched lands, naturally filtered through ancient lava rock. You are what you drink. Be a force of nature. Icelandic glacial. The purest tasting water on earth, born from untouched lands, naturally filtered through ancient lava rock. You are what you drink. Be a force of nature. Icelandic glacial. The purest tasting...
Well, hello and welcome to the 7th round, our second round today. And we're going to start on board 1, which actually has already finished. It was a relatively short draw. Mats Andersen with white. He played a long game this morning, and managed to win against Jarmula. And looks like he didn't want to have a big fight today, but maybe he should have, since he had the white pieces. But let's see what happened. Knight c6, and this has all been played before many times. d4, ct, knight takes, queen takes, queen c7, c4 was played. I think that was one of the, it's the main move, c4, knight f6. But I guess the problem here is black is also very solid. You have 4 games with bishop to d7. All draws except 1 win for Vignir Vatnar Stefansson against Stefan Tadic. Was not expecting to see my friend Vignir on that list. So this is following the game Kamsky against Potkin, which was also drawn. There Potkin played bishop to c5, but Pragnalanda played rook f8, queen d3, rook c8, and apparently it must have been Pragnalanda who offered the draw, because he played the last move, and the draw was accepted. Yeah, it's very dry. White has the bishop pair, but okay, black has this pawn majority on the king side, but not much we can do with it. So a short day, well, not a short day, but a short round for both of these guys. And then we have on board 2, we have Jóhann Hjartarson against Max Varmerdam. And it seems like the time is evening out now, but at the start Max was playing really fast. They played the kings in the end. And they played the main line with e5 castles, and here Max took on d4. Knight c6, of course, the main move. The Martel Plata variation after d5. But this is actually something I like to play from time to time. c6, and Johan just puts the knight on c2. Yeah, I think I played this even once against him when he played knight c2. Knight a6 now by Max. Let's see if we have some games here. King h1, plenty of games still. h6. h6 is not very common. Knight c7 is the most common move. Bishop e6 has been played. Most of these moves aim to play d5 pretty quickly, and that's what he actually does here. He plays d5. Johan took with e-pawn and played bishop to f2. Knight c7 and now c5. Reminds me slightly of the game Carlsen Kasparov. I think Carlsen played a similar line where he played c5. Bishop d7, queen d2. Yeah, what was the last? I'm actually gonna check the last known move here. Yeah, h6 was new. E takes d5 was the first new move. Yeah, h6 had been played once, and e takes d5 was the novelty. So we have basically a new game at this point. Johan is playing it very, very solidly, just tucking the bishops away here on f1 and f2, and the rook to e1. So black does have this isolated pawn, although it's not much of a factor at the moment. It's also very firmly protected, and white is probably rather fond of his control of the d4 square, which he will try to use, but first he needs to take care of this pawn here on c5, which is now under attack by the knight and the queen. So we need to deal with that, and well, how do we do that actually? Maybe we need to reroute this bishop, play here, hit the knight, and then try to come here. That might be one solution. But I guess we'll find out. Johan is at the table thinking about it, and fortunately the time situation is getting... He plays bishop d3. The time situation is getting a lot better, because if we go back here, Johan at some point was down to, he thought there were 5 minutes here, 12 minutes, and then he was down to 55 minutes against 127. Papa Joe, as we call him. Papa Joe. Yeah. Black looks fine here, but still everything to play for. We'll come back to this one later. Yeah. It's probably the only way to protect the pawn, actually. This one.
Yeah.
So Thomas Pearson is playing on board 3 against Itani Puya, and they play the Najdorf. I know Itani Puya tends to play the Najdorf. What's the last move? Queen c7. So white sacrificed a pawn at some stage, let's see. g5 takes, sacrifice the e-pawn. Apparently for control of the square d5. Also maybe it's difficult for black to safely castle because of the h-file being open. So queen c7, so white needs to take care of the mate threat. Knight a1?
Yeah. You like?
Really like? No, yeah, I wonder what the best course of action is. Well, c3 you always have to factor in b4. So maybe just rook d2. That's the way to do it. Rook d2 maybe. Is there anything tactically wrong with rook d2? I don't think there is, but I'm not sure about this pawn sacrifice. The pawn is a pawn. Also, we don't necessarily have to castle in. Maybe if we have to, we can tuck the king here, maybe. So I'm not sure what Thomas Beardson is doing here. On port number 4, Pierre Laurent Pauli has white against Gukesh. And it was some kind of a There was some kind of Ragozin with bishop to b4. For some reason the name just popped right out of my head. Bishop d5, h6. Yeah, the Ragozin has become a lot more popular than it used to. Well, there was a time, because I don't really play d5 with black, and I guess there was a time where I simply wasn't aware of, knew little to next to nothing about the Ragozin, and almost never faced it. That's maybe mostly because when I played d4, I played knight f3 on the third move, allowing the Queen's Indian or the Boko Indian. So this is more of an opening that happens after we play knight c3 for white. Okay, bishop b5. Many moves here. Yeah, bishop b5 has been played twice. Black castles, bishop takes c3, and knight a5 now by Gukash. b5, grabbing control of the c4 square, so there's no c4 break for white. So the queen c1, knight b6. Where was the knight? So he doesn't mind white taking c4, I guess, but then he moves the knight again. Maybe just figuring, okay, the knight is better placed on b6 than it was on a5. And also we're stopping white from playing a4, I guess. Knight b3 now by white. Although I wonder if I do play a4. Let's say take with a knight. Can I play c4? Might be a bit too much. Might be a bit too much. Anyway, knight b6, knight b3 was played. And this must be hanging somewhat in the balance. Magnus Magnusson has withdrawn from the tournament. It's a huge upset for fans of Magnus. And that comes to a4. Some pressure here. Okay, we go to board 5, where I believe we have camera action. So Alexander Fear, white pieces, Lukas Jarmula, black pieces. When I was writing the Icelandic report, instead of Jarmula I said Jurmala. And I guess the reason for that is that Jurmala is actually a city in Latvia. So I think I'm excused for mixing that up. So at the moment, equal material. We have this knight against this long-range bishop right here. One open file, which both are contesting. This looks maybe a little bit drawish, to be honest. Black can at some point kick this knight away, and then maybe you have to go here, and if you have to trade, maybe there isn't too much in it, to be honest. So not a good choice for our webcam, but okay, maybe something will happen later in the game. Just have to wait and see. So young Brandon Clark is playing against Matthew Cornett. And it was a French by the Frenchman. She takes d4, castles, no, oh, he castled right away, gambling a pawn here, which Cornett accepted. Knight g to e7, bishop to g5, and queen to b8. And this is already a rare position. So queen b8 maybe has ideas of simply taking this pawn, so white protects it. Knight g6, reintroducing the idea of taking the pawn, but not yet. First Matthew played h6 and then he took the pawn on e5. And this is very ambitious by Cornett, and I'm sure he was aware of that white cannot take on d5. But on the other hand, we can now play bishop to d6, we're stopping the threat of knight c7. Yeah, note that we can't really take this knight because takes, and there's going to be a pin, and we can play f4 if we need more material. But bishop d6, and now we are simply threatening to castle and be up a pawn. Bishop d4. Can we castle now? That's a big question. Maybe we have to play a move like bishop c6, but if we castle, don't see any big problem. I mean, takes and knight e7 doesn't really do much. Maybe knight e7 first, and if I have to take it, then takes. But I'm not sure what happens here. Am I maybe starting to make some threats all of a sudden? Maybe this is annoying. Possibly. Okay, so maybe not castles just yet. I guess he will think about it. And he has 54 minutes, half an hour more, so he can definitely think about it. Kasa Corley and Hjörvar have already drawn. They played this semi-Slav line, and Kasa played very interestingly here. Bishop on f2, bishop on h3. Unusual setup by white here in this line. And I think, yeah, Hjörvar just played knight bd7 here and don't want to draw. I mean, black is obviously very solid. I guess he didn't fancy playing for a win here in this line. So a draw was the result here. So Héðinn against Tanya was a queen's gambit declined. It seems. Well, it's actually just okay. So b4 now here by Héðinn, trying to get. Well, I thought he was trying to get some kind of minority attack with b4, b5, but it took with the bishop on b4. And queen b4, offering the trade, which black should probably ignore, because if you take, well, number one, you improve the pawn, and the minority attack is back on the agenda. And also by avoiding the trade, we also have a target here for the black pieces on a3 to think about. But overall, not the most exciting position in the world. Julian Song, who beat Abhijit Gupta, is now playing against Christopher Yu. So white is down the exchange, but he has a potentially strong pawn here on c6. Let's quickly see how this happened. Some kind of Catalan, maybe a theoretical line here. Yeah, probably queen g2, b5, which has become somewhat topical. a4, b4, knight after d2, and knight d5. c4, c5. Ah, yeah, it's a line that was played in Dingliren against Carlsen some years ago. Knight e3. There's Max Sudlu, Gukash, Gelfand against Bogdan Daniev. A lot of reasonably high profile games here. c6, rook c8, bishop f4. This is all well known. Still 16 games. Rook d1, d4, still the main move. Now h4 is the main move. But Julian Song plays knight d2, which is basically a new move, I think. Yeah. So h4 has actually scored pretty well for white, but knight d2 is played, bishop takes e2, rook e1. Still think I've seen this in some recent game. It looks strange, but we will sacrifice the exchange here at some point, which we do here. And we have this position. And this pawn is rather strong, and we don't have means to take it immediately. We can't do this. Even if it was our move, let's play something like this. Because we would simply pin here with rook c1. Pin this and win this. So it's a white to move here. We go to the next game where Sebastian Marseille. For the second time this tournament, we see this very quiet line here against the Caro-Kann. Just immediately allowing a queen trade. And knight c3 is the computer move, and it is what Hjörvar played in his game, if I remember correctly. But Marseille went with knight b to d2. One would think he would go for c3, king c2 then at some point, but I'm not sure he did. Bishop h6. Unusual play by black here. b3. Bishop goes to b2. e5, knight d5, and e6. We have to go knight 7 to f6 to avoid material losses. Takes. Now white has the better pawn structure. King g7. c4, pushing the knight away. Well, actually edging it more towards our own king. g4 and g3. It might be annoying now if black opens up his bishop and plays c5. Let's go back to Johann's game. So Kevin, what happened in the Liverpool game? Did it end 2-2? So it was 2-2 towards the end. So Johann played bishop g3 here. We have some moves since last time. Knight to e6. Bishop d6 naturally, hitting the queen. Defending the pawn for now. And also, yeah, we can take this one. Sorry, d5. Which he did. Knight d takes c5. Knight e7 check. King h7. Knight takes c6. And b takes c6. Could we maybe have... Played more ambitiously. The thing is, we don't really have to protect this bishop actually, so maybe knight c to e3, because if you take, I have knight f6 check. Knight e7. Maybe not the best, but probably okay. He takes c6. And probably we must take care of this somehow. But it's maybe not so easy, like b3, a4. Could be an issue. Yeah. Mares missed a checkmate in one. So basically open goal, I guess. Okay, let's get an update. What did Johan play? He played b3. Now black can probably get a nice initiative here if he finds the best move. That move seems to be rook a7, intending rook d7. Rook in front of the queen. It could be annoying, but I'm hoping he play something more natural, like queen d7, intending to double. But once you think about doubling, then maybe you start to rethink it, and you think, okay, maybe I should have the rook in front. So Max is thinking, and personally I'm hoping he doesn't find the best move here, because I have a rooting interest. Abhimanyu Mishra against Eric Rosen was, well, I don't know if interesting is the word, but let's see what happened. Mishra with white. Knight f3, e6, g3. Quite built up by Mishra, and Eric goes for an e5 here, even though it lost the tempo. We're arguing that queen e2 isn't too useful, and we're just going to get a kind of pot winning setup, which is the pawns are here, and usually the bishop goes here. We're playing g6, but okay, these moves also take a lot of time. Knight a3, d5. Okay, he's going for a full on. Trying to get like a Maroczy bind here. And an interesting thing happened. Bishop f5. Rook e1, hitting this. Here, Eric played bishop to d6. Which is not good, and it's hard to explain this mistake, because the queen is sitting on this diagonal where the knight is, and white has this reasonably obvious move, knight d4. So I'm wondering what Eric missed. He can't go back here to e6 to protect the bishop, Obviously you can't take with the pawn because I just take your queen. So he must have been counting on knight takes d4. But then we should be able to take. And if you take with the queen, there's knight b5. Can't keep an eye on this. Maybe this is something you just missed, that, you know. And the other idea is to go back to e6, which is then the only square. But then we have d takes on e5. Rook f e8 still pins the pawn. But it looks like white has enough here with bishop f4. And we're already up a pawn actually, so. And this hangs. So this looks like a big problem for black. So Eric sacked his queen. Yeah, 94 is ouch. And in some cases this queen can't be sacked. And there's a I want to say famous game, but I mean not well known to anybody. But I remember the game. I think it was Kramnik against Mohammed Esad, where Esad sacrifices queen for 2 pieces. Then black had the bishop on b7, which is completely different. But here he's just going to have 2 pieces for the queen, and that's not going to be enough. Rook e8, queen d1. Rook takes e8, rook takes e8. And black sort of has to try to keep pieces on, but unfortunately he might be facing another dilemma here with another knight discovery. So let's say bishop c8, maybe knight d6 as a move here. Just trading off pieces with tempo. So black might be forced to trade off some pieces here. So he can't be too happy here, Eric Rosen. And he already survived a pretty bad game this morning where he was completely lost, but his opponent took an unbelievable decision and just let him into the game. Simon on board, 16. Looks like he faced a... no, I remember, it was the Exchange Slav. I saw it earlier. Exchange Slav. Timon Bronstein sack his pawn in a famous line in Alekhine, and of course in the Samish King's Indian. I mean, in some cases you can have 2 pieces for a queen. And Bronstein was one of the main guys when it comes to the line in the Samish. Let's see if I can remember it. e4, d6, oops, e4, d6, f3, castles, I guess bishop e3, e5, d5, right? And is it knight h5 now? Queen d2, queen h4 check, and if what's this like again? Yeah, if g3 we take it, they pin us with queen f2, we take on f1 and we take on h4. This is completely different because we get the pawn, probably a second pawn maybe, and 2 pieces for the queen. And this is more closed. I mean, even Yasser Seirawan famously drew against Kasparov with black in this line. And yeah, he has some excellent annotations of that game on YouTube. Somewhere, probably on the Chess Pro channel or the St. Louis one. So Bronstein, you know, played some games in this line and is generally credited for that idea and many ideas in the King's Indian. But the more close position, I think the one that Eric has is much more difficult to play. But okay, back to Simon's game and exchange Slav, which actually can pack some venom. It's not, you know, always just a free ride. But does Soham, who by the way who won the Blitz tournament yesterday, scoring 8 out of 9. He takes with the pawn on f6, accepts the double pawns, but I guess he figures his initiative on the c file is worth something, and he doubles on the c file, takes on c3 and doubles. So it's probably hard to take advantage of these double pawns. So probably the assessment of this is probably somewhere around equal, if I were to venture an educated guess. So where is White trying to find play? Can we try to play c4? What do we want to do with the pawns? Do we want to go a4, a5? Maybe. Yeah, a4 is probably fine. We can expand here on the king side. But nothing concrete, you know, it's just small improving moves. And the time situation is okay, 36 against 31. Eero Valkama seems to have a decent position, but Thruster is also very solid here. Let's focus on the top boards. Like we said earlier, Mats Andersen and Ramesh Babu Pragnananda have drawn their game on board 1. Johan and Max have an interesting position where Max seems to have found the correct way with rook a7, intending rook d7 and knight d3. Bishop takes, rook takes, and queen e4. Are we facing insurmountable problems here for White? He's not down material, but what's going on the back rank? Looks uncomfortable, but I don't see any knockout blow, but looks very bad optically. No, I'm not very happy about the Johan's position here, especially since he's white. Seems like he has lost, well, more than a bit of control. He's lost a lot of control. But it's not all fun and game for the Dutch, because Thomas Bjertsen wasn't doing too great earlier. He sacrificed a pawn. He stopped the mate on c2 by playing queen to d2. Rook h4, king b1, knight b6. Black still looks to be for choice here. I mean, he still has an extra pawn. People are talking about you know, how a GM mind works. And I actually bought an interesting book that I think might give some insight into how grandmasters think. It's called Think Like a Super G. And that's a nice concept. It's Michael Adams and Philip Hurtado who is doing. He's a researcher, engineer, physicist, statistician, and passionate amateur chess players. So what they did was they had I guess, well, I haven't read the whole book. They have a bunch of positions where, kind of test positions, where it might be a tactic or there might be something just to think about or evaluate the position. And then they have players of different strength. Like Victor, age 14, unrated. And they time it, like after 5 seconds, immediately a CO fork. They have a 21.49 after about a minute. I'm looking at something like this move. Then we have Harriet Hunt, 24.14. I'm a punt down. Other than that, I'm happy with the position. And then we have Michael Adams. I'm attracted to the idea of blah blah blah, something. So this looks very interesting. I'm looking forward to, testing out the positions and seeing if there's something to be learned from this book. That's the thing about chess. You can always learn a little bit more. So, where was the action? Maybe I should be... Let's be a little bit more organized. I'm gonna get a pen. Let's see if we can find something. So Mats Hansen, draw. Mats Hansen, Kassa Corley, Hjörvar Gretarsson, draw. Yeah, unfortunately we're missing 3 Icelandic grandmasters from this tournament. 3. Helgi Gretarsson, Guðmundur Kjartansson and Hannes Stefánsson. Hannes was along with Gummi, they played the European Individual Championship. So they couldn't join this tournament, unfortunately. We have some decisive games. Ronak Sadvani mounting a small comeback after failing to impress. And let's see what happened against Matthias de Wachter, 22.95. Yeah, it's a little bit weird to play bishop c5 and then bishop back to e7, but maybe nothing, anything drastic. Queen b3, f5, very aggressive. Knight now probably comes to e3, but he sacks a pawn for this pawn. Okay, central pawns tend to be more valuable, and the rook on a5 isn't making a very good impression. Now Sadvani just gives up the pawn on e4 if you want it. He doesn't want it. Avoiding the knight fork on a5, obviously. So that explains queen a2. Also setting up some ideas, maybe later of playing b4, which actually it does now. Where does the rook go? To h5, which isn't impressive, as which is also not impressive as the move bishop d5 apparently. Could have played well, knight d5 is strong. Bishop d5 resigns. That's a bit odd. Maybe what? Because knight d5 looks actually very strong. Where does the queen go? Here or something? I don't know. And we take. Winning another pawn here. And the black pieces just look dodgy. I have a hard time believing he resigned after bishop d5, but this is what the censory board said. And Hans Niemann looks like he played rather quickly in this game against the Philidor Rook e1, c6, a4 I presume, h6, h3. This is all reasonably well known as a good way for white to play, I think, against the Philidor. Bishop e3, knight takes d4. Rook e3. a b4, b5, bishop e3. Doesn't look like critical or anything. I mean, black actually looks reasonably solid. Although this is always hanging in the air. Some kind of f4 push. c5 may be too ambitious here. Bishop takes e5, rook takes e5, knight to f3. Rook must go back, and e5. c4 takes. Bishop e6. So why couldn't he take on b3? Because d7 was hanging. So this was probably not the best course of action for black. Although it's not super easy. It's very complicated actually. So the rook was hanging, and this looks like it may have been a losing blunder. Why couldn't he take on g7, knight e4? Yeah, we get this out of the way, threaten this check. So if he takes, we go here. You don't have time to take because of this check. And if you have to deal with that, then we have bishop e1 coming next, and we save the bishop. Save the bishop! So he played instead bishop to c5, but not knight e4 nonetheless. And white is keeping the extra piece. Followed most likely by taking on c4 at some stage. Oh yeah, knight e5 immediately. Thought the rook somewhere, bishop takes c4, but not rook there because of knight f5. Or rook on rook. Yeah, good game by Niemann it seemed. And let's go to Alexander Viersport, which is looking rather dry. I want to say equalish. Maybe biggest action is on. Yeah, this looks super dry. It's probably going to be a draw pretty soon. Johan against Max might be actually critical. After queen takes f4, Max played queen rook d2, sorry. Took the pawn on a2. So it's now won a pawn. And yeah, doesn't look too great for Johan. In the background we see Iten Puya against Thomas Björtsen. Gonna look at that one. We still have this extra pawn. The obvious question is, can we just take this? You can't take with the queen because of this, probably, and if you take here, I just want to take this and argue that my king is safe here. Your knight is a long way from getting to d5. So this actually looks just pretty good for the top seed, Itani Puya, who took a bye last round, which was an interesting choice, to say the least. Okay, we don't have clocks on this one. Johan and Max. Just looks bad, unfortunately. Okay, Brendan against Matthew. Was with French, where white sacked the pawn, bishop d6, bishop to d4, bishop to c6, which is probably correct. Queen h5, really? Knight takes d3, and rook takes e6. And Matthew played king f8. So black is up a piece. A whole piece. The rook on e6 is hanging. We can trade on d5 if we want to, if we need to. There might be a trade on f4 as well. So I'm wondering, where is white's compensation here? It's actually hard to see, and I don't see it. So Matthew might be having a good round here. Port 8 Héðinn against Tanya. This does not make a good impression here, the knight on h1. But at least it's holding white's position together, I guess. Massey Cummings. Still must be hanging in the balance. Song against you. Yeah, that's an interesting line. On port 13 we have Maria Bertnik against Atipan. And Atipan played the modern Benoni, and white did play it rather poorly, I must say. But seems to have turned things around. So this seems rather, well, like slightly unambitious at least, because black is equalized, he has good control over the square. And in general, when we traded off the light squared bishop for black, we've minimized the sort of congestion that the pieces have getting into each other's way. Knight f3, knight f6. So maybe Atipan wasn't, his position wasn't as good as I thought. There was nothing wrong with it, obviously. It was just good Benoni, but probably nothing more than him equalizing and having no problems. But here he's down a pawn. What is he up to here? What is he up to here? e5 takes, and d6. So the pawns are now equal, but white is starting to push. Have a trade. I guess rook b2 can be played. But we need to do something about this pawn. Either we have to blockade it right away, or play a move like knight e6. So a quick check-in with Eric Rosen. Who has to deal with the threat to his rook here. Unfortunately, he might lose a pawn here as well. So, yeah, not getting enough coordination for his pieces for this to be successful. And probably the position needs to be more close for this to be possible, like in the King's Indian. So I think I will leave you with probably Johan's game, which might not last very long. And I'm gonna take a break and be back hopefully for the time trouble phase. And I'll see you there. Thank you. Somebody's awake. Somebody's awake. That's good. Okay, so maybe we'll repeat quickly. We looked at Johan's game, and yeah, I mean it was already lost when we left it, but you saw it on the screen. Cornet was simply too much stuff hanging. No, hanging rook, hanging exchange, more trades. So tried something desperate, but simply didn't work. And Fear and Jarmula was very dry, so I'm not going to look at that again. So back to Beardson and Puya. It's now 3 pawns. 3 pawns, that's a lot. And aren't we forced to trade queens here? The 94 queen c4. Okay, queen d1, then he played d3. Main problem, of course, is that we can't take this because of maiden 2. Which tends to be a problem. So what else is there? If c3, we take the knight. If knight c3, we'll probably start with this and then play b4 at the end. If queen takes, there's queen f1 check. If king takes, probably b4 is fine. Or we could trade stuff with queen a4. So this looks completely lost. And looking like a nice win for Idani Puya. Moving back into contention, despite taking a bye. But the bye could hurt him if we go to tiebreaks. Paoli against Gukesh is looking like well, I mean these pawns are pretty scary, not gonna lie. So the question is, can White get an attack here and break through, or will the pawns decide the game? So I think White is kind of all in at this point. I think he has to go for the attack. And if he doesn't, then the pawns will simply march down the board. Eric Rosen, somebody said. This would be interesting if White didn't have this pawn, but with a pawn, I believe I would beat Magnus Carlsen here 10 out of 10 times. And so should you. So Eric has no chances here. In fact, we can just pick up the knight and then trade everything off on c3, and the outside passer decides the game. So not a good day at the office for Eric. And now we have 2 rounds left. So not a lot of time to recover for people. So Adiban, is he going to be able to find something? Yet again, we find Adiban in an endgame that doesn't seem to offer him tremendous chances. So he's probably going to win this pawn. At the moment, it's not a threat because of the discovery here. It's White to move, so either we should be trying to get going here with the king, maybe activate the king, or maybe go for a counter-attack here with rook h4. How do we defend the pawn? Because if we push h5, then we can probably go bishop f7, and this becomes annoying. Here we would probably start getting some trades, something like this. And we would take generally, but there's rook h8, so probably we hit the knight and then trade stuff. So this might be difficult to win. Very, very difficult in fact. Ain't no mountain high enough. Yeah, disappointing tournament for Adiban thus far. Our good friend Oleg Romanishin has won with black against Dei Mahitos. Faced the London system and just played classically. What else? Playing for e5. This is a very good system for black, where you just play for e5. And black has the bishop pair, not many problems. b3 here by white, b5 now by Romanishin, trying to take the initiative, trying to play b4 perhaps to gain some control of the dark squares, the d4 square in particular. Bishop h6, rook e1, now he doubles on the d file because why not? And he goes for c4. I was expecting the shot to come from the other side, but what's going on here is the b4. Queen back to b6, a4, rook d3. We can't take because of this. So takes, bishop takes e3. Now stuff is looking a bit sketchy here for white. And did he miss a win here? Maybe f5. f5 is strong here. And the idea is that when the bishop moves, you can play rook here and start to hit the c pawn. Then you have a very dangerous pass pawn. Instead, you play queen b6, but still won rather quickly. After queen takes b5, bishop f3, queen b8, rook d3. But where's the knockout blow? Queen b6. Resigns. Well, he's only down a pawn, but clearly he'd seen enough. And well, after the queen trade, we can't really protect this pawn because then we lose the bishop. So white had seen enough, I guess. Okay, just really quickly. Abhijit Gupta is all the way down on board 25. That's been a rough tournament for him. But he should be winning here. Just want to see if we have some interesting matchups on the lower boards. Johanna Birg is playing against Stephen Mannion, and it's a fork, but we can check on e2, take a b2, or give some checks on the back rank. I know my friend Gautipal. He's on board 57. It's a bit far down, but Gauti is a very enthusiastic chess player, and he deserves to have us look at his game a little bit. Although this one, I mean, it's equal material, but he's suffering a little bit because of white's space advantage and the fact that maybe he can make inroads by going here, here, and here, which could be annoying. If white doesn't see that, then maybe black is okay after he gets knight to c6 or something in. But right now, white has the space advantage. But okay. Let's go back up and eat any puya. And by the way, as I say that, white plays queen d4, which is completely hence the draw on a silver platter to black. But if I know Gauti correctly, I know he wants to play for a win. So we'll try to avoid the trade, or at least get some kind of what's it called? What's the word? And now I even forgot the name of the guy that wrote the book. Like, it's like, never mind. Yeah, I think after d3, Björnsson probably just resigned. Well, he played a few more moves. Knight c3, takes, king takes, and b4 resigns. A very smooth win by Idani Puya, and probably this pawn sacrifice by Björnsson was a little bit too much. At least it didn't work out this time. So now we actually have nobody here. Just have a view of the main hall. On board 4, Gukash is trying to, well, basically more or less queen his pawns if he can. Because he has more pawns, he has more other pawns, so he has more pawns he can queen, so he's trying to queen one of them. It's a good strategy, because when you queen a pawn, you lose the pawn, you know, so better make a queen. f6. Well, one would think white would go e6 here, with the potential maybe to play f5, so f6 looks a bit weird to me, but I'm not a 2600 grandmaster. But still ask, why not just here? Is black just hoping to close it down here? Arguing, especially if you go f5, let's say a2, f5. We're just arguing that, you know, it takes such a long time to get something going on the king side. He just puts the king here. It takes you 1, 2, 3 moves to attack something, and it takes me 1 move to defend it. And it's virtually impossible to get this knight here over to h5. So there's just no danger. So maybe f6 is fine. Who knows? So fear draw, connect draw, song against you. Just drawn as we. Yeah, this one. Let's go back a few moves. This was the end game where. No, not the end game, the middle game from the Catalan where white has his pawn on c6. And you didn't find any way to use his material advantage. Mostly because this pawn is pretty dangerous. Now Mase probably not having the best of games, but well, we know from the early game this morning that he he can't be an endgame grinder. So equal material. I guess white's structure is slightly better, but black's activity at the moment seems much better. We probably have to take back with the rook, and then the rook is not very well placed on h3. We'll just most likely bring the king to protect, and then it looks like we have a better rook, better placed knight, and then a more active king. Also, this knight outpost is much better than d5 because we can always kick away something from d5 with e6. So probably black is a bit better here, but how much is the question? Ooh, that was not good. So Bernik against Adiban. She went for this rook h4 idea. So one wonders how will Adiban react to that? Because nobody wants to play a passive move like rook h8. Do might even just still play this, just to try to take this. So we might be seeing liquidation into a draw here after h5, bishop f7, 94. When the pawns start dropping like flies. So this round was somehow a lot less interesting than the morning round, which usually is. It's the reverse. It's usually the reverse. Okay, here in Tanya, let's see, Stenkerson against Saxjev. So Stenkerson has this this A file, which he can't really do much with unless he has other pieces to back it up. So maybe like a knight to get to this square. This trade here that Tanya is going for is generally desirable. Was it a possibility for Tanya to take this? Takes, queen takes. Knight g4 is coming there. And if knight f4. Yeah, I don't know what we'll do with the knight f4. So probably this is not something to write home about. Queen g4, probably king f1. We're gonna start kicking. Start kicking stuff. Maybe it's 4 here. You know. At least it will become interesting. Let's just say that. So bishop takes h3 was probably an option there. But Tanya, she kept it safe with bishop to f5. And Héðinn is thinking. What are you thinking about? So Ítani Puja wins. A lot of black wins on the top boards. Max wins with black, Ítani wins with black, Cornet wins with black, Fyr and Jarmula was drawn. Gukesh might win with black. Tanya is fine with black, so it's not up until on board 11 and 12 that white gets wins, and on those boards, well, they were outrating their opponents by almost 300 points. I think Misha probably must have won already against Erik Rosen, and he has. Let's see the final position. Yeah, I just resigned after king d3. Simon, I guess he drew against Das Soham. Yeah, they traded bishops, and there weren't a lot of moves from what we had seen earlier. And I think we're not super interested in any of the lower boards, if I recall correctly. I mean, there are 57 boards. We really can't be, looking at even the majority of them. So we're waiting to see what happens in the Gukesh game here. So f6, e6 by Pierre Laurent Paoli, and bishop to a2. Yeah, white needs to try something. I think f5 is a mistake because you close things down. Your pieces don't have any prospect. This will be closed, and closed. So probably we should try to keep things open. Cassie just wants to go here, here, and here. So we need to do something now. Do something right away. Oh, it's been a long day, a long few days as well, man. And I believe the players must be tired. I'm just exhausted, guys. I'm not gonna lie. Not gonna lie, y'all. Wanna see what he did here. Nothing yet. Yeah, he played knight f4 actually, okay. Okay. But question is, can we get very slightly aggressive here with this? Because if our queen side is fully protected, like here, it's very easy to protect. So if queen a7, just well, okay. Aside from the fact that it's black to move, so like queen a7, it's very easy to protect here with rook e7, and we don't have much to worry about. There's even a possibility of putting the knight on d6. Maybe this rook f1, knight d6, and then with everything protected, we might even swing the rook here, which covers the knight, which covers the base, and then we can go for an attack. Push stuff. So maybe it's actually black that is for choice here. But g5 could be interesting if Tanya wants to spice it up. And I think she likes it spicy. So spice it up, Tanya. You can do it. Meanwhile, Mase playing another long game, where he is slightly worse at least. Should be able to save a draw though. Should be able to save the draw. Atiban still getting nowhere, it seems. Let's go back to the Gukesh game. Getting some moves now. Okay, yeah, it's slight time trouble at least. So queen f2 was the move after bishop a2, b3, and knight into d7. Guess the idea is can't really move the rook because f takes g5 and then knight f6. So either we take on d7 or we play b2. Well, black is only about 20 seconds, so I guess we'll find out soon. b2 was played. So white can take on f8 obviously, but we can always win the exchange back by queening a pawn. b1 takes, etc. Good choice. Takes on g5. And I guess we have to take with the h pawn. Because if we take with the other one, can't we just take... I think that's losing because we take on f8 a billion times, play e7 and bishop g6. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, if you take with the f pawn, I think we take on f8 bunch of times. Just play e7. Because of this move, we win. So we had to take with the h pawn. So 6 minutes for Laurent Paoli. Less than a minute for Kukash. So time trouble might be an issue here. The pawns are very strong. Pawns are very strong. Okay, let's quickly see if Tanya played the aggressive move. Looks like she did. But I'm wondering if she played rook e7. I'm just wondering if it was better to play knight d6. That way you cover the 8th rank, you cover b7, and you have the option of playing rook e6, rook g6, stuff like that. But Tanya seems to have no problems. She's playing this nicely. Let's see. So queen d2 was the last move. I guess intending to take on f6 or something like that. I guess this was a threat. Rook takes and queen takes g5 was the idea with queen d2. But black should probably just play knight d5 and then protect everything. Instead he took on e6. And I'm confused because the knight on c3 is also hanging. So is Kukash blundering here? If you take on f8, that is take on c3. I'm curious what happened there. It looked like Kukash is just throwing it away here, maybe. Okay, looks like he made a queen. So it's very confusing what's going on. So if we take, there's knight takes b1 hitting the queen. Guess we could take, but this should be okay for black. Followed by a2, and the bishop is strong on d5. Black is probably not worse here, so does white have something better? Maybe such as an in-between move, knight here or rook here maybe? What's the material count now? Let's say I do something like this. King takes. Yeah, we'll lose stuff, because if we take this, I just take on c3. So if white plays this correctly, he's winning material. Just gonna update the board, so we'll leave it for a split second and then come back. Yeah, looks like Kukash is blowing it here. Despite having two queens, one of them will soon fall. White actually has an extra rook, and he can take a piece on e6. So rook and the piece for a queen, but both queens are hanging. So at the end of the day, when we finish the accounting, white will come out on top. But white taking his time. I mean, he had like 6 minutes left, so he can use at least some time to calculate. I mean, it's a complicated position. He might even be thinking about, okay, knight g6 is probably fine. Knight g6 is probably fine as well. Let's say he moves the queen, we take on b1. And we're doing pretty good. Queen f7, now bishop takes b1. Knight takes b1. And we just need to find a good move here. Because rook takes b1, queen takes g6 may not be what we're after. Maybe it's still complicated. Because of this attack, well, yeah, the rook ran away. There's no attack on the bishop. So if you allow this, then black might be okay. So there has to be a stronger move there for this to work out for white. So we have this position on the board. We're gonna briefly look at Tanya. Nothing changed. Marseille still struggling. So let's see what. And Adiban finally looks very much strong. So the main attraction is this game. Pierre Laurent Paoli and D. Gukesh. And Gukesh, well, actually both of them have indeed reached the time control. So now white can actually think about things, and that's not good for Gukesh, because white might be able to come up with the best move here. Which may be to hit the rook. Also, very importantly, now if this is taken, this is hanging, and equally importantly, this knight is not getting out because it's dominated by the queen. So all this seems to point out to black struggling for his life here. Let's say rook b8. Now the knight could escape here. Plenty of good things. Yeah, Johan lost. Did not have a good game today. And Héðinn is still playing. Héðinn is still playing. Which, yeah, in what looks like an equal position, but maybe Héðinn is the one that needs to be careful, as black has some chances to build up an attack while keeping everything under control on the queen side. So a move such as yeah, no problem, mate. Queen back, f5, g4. Looks like, you know, black has more dynamics, but I don't think it's probably hard to make much happen here. Anytime you start opening things up, you also run the risk of your king becoming exposed as well. So yeah, looks drawish probably. Laurent Pierre Paoli is thinking about it still. Yeah, so these two are kind of the final games on the top boards. So I guess we'll maybe wait a little bit and see what what the white does in this one. All the boards that are on video have finished, so that's all we have. Maybe I'll try to tilt the camera and get a view of this game, because it's the most interesting one left. Yeah, I'll move it around a bit. So, well, I can tilt it at least. So what's happening? Did he find? Yeah, he found the move. After knight takes b1, he thought for a while, and he found this strong move, queen to a5, which hits the rook, keeps an eye on the lock and key, also keeps an eye on the pass pawn. And we have one more move, rook c8 by Gukesh. But now white can try to, for instance, get out with a knight. And probably start to claim that he simply has a material advantage here that he can just use. So not looking good for young Gukesh here. Hierin and Tanya, what have they done? Not much. Not much. Again, I suspect it's going to end in a draw. And Mase was struggling in the end game. But maybe, did he find a trick there at the end? He found a way to get the B pawn here. Okay, so maybe Mase is getting back into the game. Should be able to save the draw after a difficult game. So probably knight d7 here, targeting this one. Probably takes and rook b8 maybe. Rook b8, knight d2 and take, maybe f5. Okay, he's still not out of the water, but doing better, I think. Just a quick look maybe at Alexander Oliver. He's playing at 2300 here. Nagpal Vardan. And probably slightly worse here in a rook endgame, but nothing much. H4 perhaps. Not the best move. Allowing this, maybe this check and takes. There's also at some stage this. So slightly worse, but we should be able to save the draw. I'm going to quickly see what Hilmir and Benedikt are doing. And this seems rather equal. Benedikt has been, doing pretty good in this tournament, although should have won his game early in the morning. Larkin must have won. Let's see, what is the marking? Maybe they changed it because it's from 0-1 to 1-0, because now he's winning. It's just mate. So Larkin indeed won. Okay, Gupta won against Francisco. Cyril Sigamani, or 39. He's probably losing against Peter Sore. So let's see what's happening in the Gukesh game again. White using his time. Like I said before, 95 comes into consideration. Maybe even d5 might be a move, because we can't take with the bishop on account of 97 check and take here. And c takes d5, queen b6 perhaps. And we're hitting this and this. But maybe there's a2. What happens there? I mean, something like this is not something you would generally start by looking at, but might just be good. King up and takes, and we have 2 rooks against the queen. But we're threatening this, and we have this under control. Okay, so let's say here, for instance. Yeah, also this is hanging, so yeah, we're just winning stuff. But it's not the most rational position I've ever seen. So all these moves look quite good. There might even be more moves that look good here. Guess Adiban finished. He's on board 13. Yep, it's a draw. Disappointing tournament for Bhaskar and Adiban. The last time he played here in 2019, 2018, he was the winner. So almost none of the former winners are doing well, except for Johan, but he lost today. So I think we'll have most likely a new winner of the Reykjavik Open. Yeah. Still no move from Laurent Paoli. Bray has an interesting game, apparently. Let's see. We haven't looked at him at all. Bray Thorfinnsson here with Savite pieces. And what were the last few moves here? Let's see. Wow, his opponent is all tripled up on g-file. Maybe this move isn't the sharpest one we've ever seen. Where's the knight going? I don't know, but now he starts kicking stuff away. We get a pawn. We trade. And we take on c4. And now we see that this isn't particularly good. Now if we take, there's queen f3 and no way to interpose anything on the diagonal. And that's actually the last move. Seems to me that Bray is taken over here. So up 2 pawns, and black isn't really threatening anything at the moment. Might play something like queen h8 just to threaten something, but even then we might just take on d6 and say it's not a threat, because, well, number one, we can take, and number two, we might be able to make a run for it. Although taking is probably better because there's no check on f3. If the rook wasn't here, we would have walked into mate, but the rook does a good job, so this would be winning for white. So black isn't threatening anything. Okay, so it looks like to me like Bragi should win this game. Looks like that to me. Quickly, let's check out. Okay, my friend Gauti, he drew already. Sometimes interesting when there are long games to see what's on the boards. Yeah, Bragi has definitely the upper hand. Harry Sang is winning against Johan Ingvarsson. Not good for Johan, who is significantly outrating his opponent. Thomas Villiers is winning against the lower-rated opponent. Yeah, some 2100 Icelandic guys struggling against seemingly underrated guys, I would guess 1800 guys. So we have these main games left on the top boards. It's Pauli Gukash, Steingrimsson, Sartjev, and maybe Maciej Cummings, which should be on its way to simplify towards a draw, but black can still fight a little bit for something. Tanya has managed to trade stuff. After queen b4, we had rook e8, takes, knight c3, takes. So this should be equal. This is the threat though, which white must avoid. But that's, well, fairly easy to do. Either queen b4 or queen anyway, or the b file just to protect the pawn, and or just protect the first rank. And Sebit seems to be winning. Some lower boards having some interest in the Icelandic players. Where is he? Wait down. No, he's not this deep. Let's see. Maybe the game is just over. Yeah, he already won. Arun Manukonda. King h6. Aha, getting shelter there. So now we have this annoying threat, followed by this. There's queen e2 in some lines. There's queen g2 to e2, for instance. If you try to avoid this line, we just go for this, and then here, or the other way around. So mate looks actually unavoidable. It is inevitable. Let's keep an eye on this one for the time being. What happened here? Rook c8, and white thought about it and took on e6 to take on b1, when he might have been able to throw in rook e1 and knight e7, which he completely missed. So now this might just be teetering out to a draw. Like queen e4 hits this and hits this. I guess, okay, we get the a-pawn back, but should be a draw. So this game was, yeah, it's been full of mistakes on both sides, especially in the time trouble. But understandably, it was a very complicated position. So rook takes b1, and that's the position. So Lauren Pauli has made, yeah, not taking advantage of his extra material. I don't know if he just forgot about, not getting out. It was a strange decision. Rook takes e6, and even going for this, how can you not at least consider this and just check? It might just be a perpetual and he's trying to win, perhaps, but I don't know. At least this looks tempting. I mean, the knight is so bad, we may even be able to just play more like this. We may be able to do that, but we would prefer to take with the queen. So either the queen here is the most direct with a double attack, or maybe just queen back here. Oops, back here as well, and win it back. But in the meantime, we will lose the a3 pawn. So this should be getting rather dry all of a sudden. Yeah, cool, because there's plenty of time. Still thinking. Okay, we have a move from Gukesh. It's actually reset because we have some analysis. Meanwhile, yeah, Hidden seems to be heading towards a draw with Tanya. We play rook e8. Another move which I don't fully understand. Well, okay, the rook is slightly more active, and maybe the knight isn't going anywhere yet. So just improve a piece and then grab the piece later. Looks like we have a move. And look at where he puts the hand. If it's on the left side, he's probably going to take the pawn a3. What about queen e3 check? Yeah, you mean after queen takes a3 or queen e3 in general instead of rook e8? I guess you mean here. Let's first see what it does. Let's first see what it does. Well, still thinking about it. Yeah, somebody suggesting instead of rook e8, queen e3. I'm not sure what difference it makes, because we can't really start grabbing pawns because then the knight gets out. So maybe you have to go here anyway just to stop knight e7. So maybe queen e3 doesn't have any individual value other than protecting the pawn, I guess. But what's going on? Move like this. I just want to get in like Flynn. But maybe now we could go for queen e4. Okay, what's going on in something like this? Here we get behind the pawn, you have to get under it. I'll stop the knight from going out. It's a very unusual position. I mean, this guy's kind of stuck. So can I maybe try to win some stuff? I don't know. Here g4 takes, king g3, hack. Yeah, this wouldn't be something I would kind of aim for black. It would have to be very specific. Very specific well, not calculation, but evaluation of whether or not we have kind of a fortress or not, or if white is in zugzwang with all the pieces tied up. But okay, I guess he made a move. Yeah, he took an a3. Since he played rook e8, most likely he's just intending to grab the knight on g6 with his king. Yeah, I would guess king g7 or f7. Just to keep this active, because now queen e4. Yeah, it could be some combination of the rook coming to the 7th and the queen on this diagonal we have to worry about. So he's already played king g7 and is walking away from the board. And I think white will now just start thinking about ways to secure the draw right away. Maybe queen f3. How about just activating the king? Do you mean in the line we looked at earlier? Yeah. Let's quickly check out Stingerson and Tanya for a split second. Looks fairly dry, I must say. Puts the pressure on this pawn, and if that pawn is pushed, then maybe here, putting pressure over there. It seems to me Cummings is going to be fine here. No, I mean Marseille. Yeah, I'm starting to look at some of the lower boards. And here it looks like International Master Áskell Kárason is playing in the style of Alpha Zero with thorn pawns on both sides. He just played A3, and I guess he's eyeing Rook B2 check, followed by picking up pawns and trying to use the H-pawn. White currently has a material edge, but in practice could be tricky. And Michael Gallo, he's only 1740, so he might find ways to go wrong here. Like if you go behind the pawn, I think Rook B2 is fine. We take, and it's hard to keep everything under control, so I guess we lose the edge pawn as well. Yeah, I'd take black here, definitely. Or maybe we can just stop this Rook B2 business with 91. And then it becomes a little bit trickier. Yeah, it's a very strange position, honestly. White seems to be in control. I mean, we're threatening to after 91, threatening to just play Rook A4 and win the pawn. And if we can do that, then the material should count over on the king side. Maybe I can try to swing over, Rook E5, but then I think King D2 should be sufficient. Maybe this is an advanced way to play. Put the Rook on A5. And we probably don't have time for anything else than to bring the king, bring the Rook. So here, and do we win the pawn? So black will probably have to play something like King F7 or G5 or get going. Yeah, complicated game, honestly. I'm getting a bit too tired to understand the subtleties of such a position. We're just gonna see through, I guess. Okay, so king g7, he gives away the knight like this, so we have trades. This might be unnecessary for white to give black a passed c pawn, which happens after we trade pawns. But this should be enough for a draw, definitely. So I think we will see a draw here rather quickly, and same for Steingrímsson against Tanya. Let's see. Queen c8. Why would we allow the queen to penetrate on e7? Because this stuff hangs. And now maybe queen g7 at some stage. It's maybe slightly annoying all of a sudden, but it must be a draw. I'm not sure we're gonna call it, but close to it. Yeah, I think I'll leave this game on, and we'll probably be back soon to wrap things up. Yeah, the Stenkersson game is apparently still going. We had a long break, but let's see what's going on here. Queen to d8. Is this holding? Is this pawn? Could be hanging in some lines, but we're targeting this. That's white to move. Maybe he can make inroads by playing either f5 or queen h5 first and then f5, trying to get some checks going and maybe win this pawn. But who knows? So this is the last game on the absolute top board. I thought Massey was finished. Well, he's up. No, yeah. Sorry, he's white. He's down a pawn. But he can probably safely play knight d6 or knight g3 in both cases, keeping the king out because of all the squares we're covering. And then just, I guess, hit the pawn, and there's no progress to be had. Right? This should be a dead draw. So it's just a matter of Stenkersson against Tanya. Steingrimson. Yeah, maybe we'll wait it out a little bit. There's 4 minutes 30 seconds for Hierin, 1 minute 30 for Tanya. Just gonna yeah. Okay, where are we? We are here. Oh, this happened. Queen h5, king g7, f5. Queen h8, queen g4, Czechoslovakia. Oh, he might be sailing it home here, because then he's gonna swing it over, threaten some nasty stuff, take this pawn, or check here first. Then I think white is now winning, actually. This is nasty, nasty stuff. Nasty, nasty stuff. King f7. You could also try, probably here, because we're threatening immediately jack, jack, take. Yeah, he played that. Maybe queen e2 was also possible, but this looks more convincing. It also keeps an eye on the h4 pawn, so we can't really make a move like queen d8 or queen e8 or anything that wants to interpose here, because we will lose this pawn. And queen d8, maybe here. Can we try queen d8? Yeah, it's actually very impressive if he's winning this. So queen c7, maybe we kind of hold on with queen e7 or king e8. But maybe he can now just take this pawn, and once you take on b6 I start checking, and it's gonna be like check check, sorry, check check, and take the pawn with check, and that's too common of a motif, I think, for him to miss this. That's very, very upsetting for Tanya, because I think the queen ending must have been a dead draw. Just look at this. Knight c3 takes. I mean, how do you even try to win this? I think this was a mistake. Queen to c8, and maybe even earlier. I mean, queen e4. Why not just queen e7? Just keep this dagger on the wraps. I don't know. Maybe let's say here. Can we start making some annoying threats? Maybe now I can play like queen d8, because queen a7 never really threatens anything. We just play queen c8. You're not getting in here. And once you go back, I copy you or block you here. Yeah, just don't let him in. Just don't let the queen in. I think that was definitely the mistake. Once she let the wrong one in. Queen b4, queen e6, and I think queen c8 here. Now the queen is in. And yeah, that's where the problems started. Queen h7, king e8, queen g6, and once you take on f6, you're actually protected d4. So, it's nasty. It's nasty. Yeah, Ryan, you're right. Black should have sat with queen to e7. It's easy to say afterwards, but it's true. There are always like some chances, but the problem is black has no counterplay with his pawns. And any perpetual is easily blocked. We can just take stuff, maybe put a queen on e5 and then just push. As soon as the pawn is on f6, black needs to deal with threats, and I don't think he simply can do that. And once you start dealing with threats, we can just improve the position. So this looks like a pretty nasty comeback. Well, not a comeback, but turn around from a drawn position. Yeah, I think we can basically call everything now and conclude that Max Varmedam will be the sole leader with 6 points, and we have Prakka, Mats Hansen, Itani Puja, and Matthew Cornett with 5.5. He then moves up to... Wait, what? What is here? Stengrimsson. Moves up to 5.5 as well then, yeah. That puts him back in contention. So yeah, interesting last 2 rounds coming up. Max looking pretty good. He will have white tomorrow probably, having just been black today. And I guess he will play either... I'll probably play mats because the colors match. But maybe he will play Prakka. It's a question. But anywho, we're going to call it for today. A long day, 2 rounds, a lot of things happened, and we're going to have exciting last 2 rounds with just half a point between the top 6. So it's going to be exciting. And see you tomorrow, and then on Tuesday for the final round. Thank you.
The purest tasting water on earth, born from untouched lands, naturally filtered through ancient lava rock. You are what you drink. Be a force of nature. Icelandic glacial. The purest tasting water on earth, born from untouched lands, naturally filtered through ancient lava rock. You are what you drink. Be a force of nature. Icelandic glacial. The purest tasting water on earth, born from untouched lands, naturally filtered through ancient lava rock.